You're listening to The Pain Chaser 1, Ambuscade, by Patrick E. Molloy. Read for you by the author. This story is intended for a mature audience and contains profanity, violence, and disturbing content that some people may find offensive. If you're in doubt, please turn back now, as you may find that some doors, once opened, refuse to be shut.
Tina Herrera stood outside the police station, one foot caught in the door to keep it from closing, and the butt of her cigarette smoldering between her manicured fingers, as she watched the snow come down like an avalanche. The weather forecast had called for snow, but what they'd gotten was a blizzard of biblical proportions. She couldn't see across to the other side of the street through the blinding plane of white. It had been 12 hours since the radio had declared a state of emergency, warning people to stay indoors, and it didn't look like she'd be going home anytime soon. The sun had already risen, but night blended seamlessly into day in the grip of the terrible storm. Gina Thompson, the officer scheduled to relieve her, was, much like everyone else in Kettle Creek, buried under several feet of snow. So Martina had picked up her shift. She didn't mind, really. She could use the overtime, and she was stuck here with Sheriff Whitcomb. She couldn't think of many people she'd rather be stuck alone in a building with for an indeterminate amount of time. He was cute, thin, well-built, with deep-set brown eyes the color of coffee, and a low, gravelly voice that reminded her of a PI from an old film noir detective movie. Unfortunately, he was also married, and her commanding officer. She sighed, resigning herself to the night of boredom, wishing she'd had the forethought to bring a book with her, and lit another cigarette off the remains of the first. Sheriff Whitcomb appeared through the crack in the door, coming around the corner with a file in his hands, and placed it down on her desk. He walked over to her and pushed the door open, wincing slightly as his eyes adjusted to the cold wind that cut like blades at his face. "I see our taxpayers' money's being well spent. Aren't you supposed to be at your desk, Herrera?" He was smiling, and she could tell he was only joking. She took a long drag on her cigarette, her shoulder brushing subconsciously against his chest as she did.
"You know as well as I do that that phone is not going to ring once. It might as well be disconnected for all the work it does around here."
As if it had heard her and wished to spite her, the phone suddenly came to life, lighting up and raising a shrill cry. Not the non-emergency ringtone, but the 911 line. In a small town like Kettle Creek, the same officer that answered the non-emergency line was often the one that also took the 911 calls. For a moment, she froze, thinking she'd imagined it or had somehow incited the sound with her words. Coming to her senses, she flicked the cigarette deep into the blinding white and barreled into the room.
"Kettle Creek Police Department, what's your emergency?"
The phone crackled in her ear. The connection was bad. For a moment, she thought no one was going to be able to get through. But then she heard a distant voice, female. It sounded like it was coming from the other end of a long hallway.
"We need help. It's somewhere..."
"Ma'am?"
she said.
"I need you to speak slowly and calmly. I can barely hear you."
Static. Shit. She was going to lose the call.
"Ma'am, can you hear me?"
she asked. More static. It was as though the wall of snow outside was a barrier between her and the weak voice somewhere in that ocean of noise.
"Ma'am, can you..."
She was suddenly cut off as the voice came back, stronger this time, and from somewhere in the back of her mind she imagined a hand thrusting up from below a frozen lake.
"There was so much blood. We need help."
Blood? Was Pat...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?